Push the button, Frank.
All right. Well, we're actually live, Mark.
Okay. Yeah, I missed my cue. I should have done that before you pushed the button.
No, you said it right when we were live.
Yeah, and the right people will get the reference. The folks who listened to our last episode.
You did. You did mention that last time.
Yes, I did, and which is why I made sure to say it after you pushed the button and went live.
So, what's going on?
I don't know. This is going to be a tough one. This is going to be a tough one because I just saw it about 2 hours ago, and it's kind of put me in a somber mood, and it's kind of put me in a little bit of a funk here. I don't know if you're aware of a gentleman by the name of Grant Thompson, who ran the YouTube channel. What was it called? The King of Random.
Yeah.
Evidently, yesterday evening, he was killed in a paragliding accident at age 38. And we both know his cousin, who I'm not going to mention his name, but he is a member of the Makers Media Network. And I just wanted to, say our hearts and prayers are with the family. It's kind of a tough thing. Excuse me, get a little emotional here. 38 years old, and just, wow. It was an accident, and more is being investigated, as we speak. But our hearts and prayers go out to his family and his friends. It's a seriously tragic loss, especially for a 38-year-old young man with a family.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking. It's like life is such a fragile thing. I mean, paragliding.
Paragliding, yes, the big A-frame parachute type of a glider. You see them; they're kind of a wing, and you have the bar that hangs down.
Yeah.
That you hold on to and strap yourself into. Evidently, he'd been doing it for several months.
Man.
And there was an accident on Monday night, and he did not survive. So, it kind of put me in a somber mood, and it just kind of, as you said, drove home that time is fleeting, and that life is sometimes a tenuous thing.
Is this my edit, by the way?
This is your edit. Okay. I'm sorry. Don't mean to be a downer, but I thought we should acknowledge it because, he was, he was, I mean, let's just face it. He was a celebrity. I mean, the man had 11 million subscribers on his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And he had amassed over 2.5 billion views on his videos. He was like number 280 most subscribed to YouTube channel out there. And, like it or not, I mean, he was a celebrity, and that's all there is to it. So when you stop and think about it, that led me to a question, and I don't know if you want to talk about it or not. But
yeah,
sure. We think of celebrity as name your favorite musician, name your favorite movie star, name your favorite TV stars. And in these days of social media, YouTube or even Facebook, celebrity status can be thrust on you whether you want it or not sometimes, but it's a little bit more easy to obtain anymore. I mean, celebrity, the definition is a famous person, a very important person, personality, name, big name, famous name.
Known, somebody known.
Yeah, somebody who is well known. And I mean, I don't think anybody can look at someone with 11 million subscribers and being viewed by 2.5 billion people, or having your material viewed 2.5 billion times. How can you look at that and not say celebrity?
No, in that case, yeah.
I mean, there are TV stars that wish 2.5 billion people saw them.
Oh, yeah.
And we're talking about their full-fledged, have production crews, the whole ding-dong thing. So that got me to thinking a little bit further.
About what?
And that is, are YouTubers celebrities? I mean, they're not treated in the same way as somebody from the movies or TV or something like that, obviously. But are they any less a celebrity than, yeah, pick David Lee Roth, Eddie Van Halen? Are they any less a celebrity than pick a movie star? I'm such a cultural infidel, I couldn't name one now.
Groucho Marx.
Yeah, well, Groucho's a meme, so. But yeah, I mean, are YouTubers celebrities, big or small? I mean, I made you kind of chuckle a minute ago when I said, God, in some circles, we'd be considered celebrities, even though we're not super well known. But
Yeah,
whether we like it or not, we're putting ourselves out for the public and for public consumption.
but are we well known? Sure, we're well known amongst our friends.
In some circles, yes, we're well known. In other circles, we're not.
Well, YouTube does have, you know how they say in Hollywood, that's a B actor, those are A-list actors, those are, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And frankly, there's some B actors that are quite they show up in every movie just about.
Yep.
And but you don't know their names.
Right.
And like there's this Italian guy. He always plays like either an Italian mobster or some sort of like law firm, especially through the 80s and stuff. And he walked into Gator Park where I used to work, and he's a tall guy. I looked at him, and he just, it's the guy. I knew he was famous. I didn't know his name. I didn't know anything. He just ordered a espresso, coffee with a lime or lemon. And he said no sugar. And I looked at him like, are you insane? Number one, you don't do that because, Cubans don't, Miami, you have your coffee with, it's a different process. You don't do it like that. Same coffee style, but you don't use lemon. And so I made him that. And all the while, I wanted to say, dude, I recognize you from this movie, that movie. I couldn't say what movie I recognize him from. I couldn't say what his name was, but I knew he was famous. So in that scenario with the B actor, it's like they're anonymous just about, their name, their face, but you can't tell. And so there's a lot of, YouTube has also a rating, not through YouTube, but through Social Blade, which I think they're all,
Right.
You know what I think they've done? I think they've connected everything. I think all these social platforms, they're all in the background and they're puppeteering us around like headless chickens in a chicken processing plant.
I don't know. I think in some ways they could, but in a lot of other ways, I mean, if you're just looking at the numbers, and I go to Social Blade and I look at numbers, and especially in their future predictions, future projections, and they're pretty accurate on their future projections. On view milestones and like subscriber milestones, they're pretty accurate. But that's about all I ever use it for, is to just crunch the numbers. And, if you have received so many million subscribers, they can rank you as you're the 427,000th most popular channel on YouTube.
Right.
And that's about all I use it for.
Well, they do it for financial reasons too, because it's all a racket. Look, I don't mean to be negative, Mark, but the older you get, or at least me, I'm not going to speak for all people that are getting older. I'm going to speak from this person that's getting older. And I hold the belief that there are commonalities as we do, but then again, I might be wrong, because that's another one of the things that you learn when you get older, that you're wrong a lot of the time. I think that everything's a freaking racket just about. Now you tell me something different, but I can't. I've told you this one before, and I'm going to tell you, but I'll tell you right now in case no one has heard. But and tell me if there's something similar.
Okay.
Miami's a different place. I don't consider myself a jerk, in when I um uh you know talk with people on the street in common day to day, just day to day activities. I try to be the least involved. But if I do have an encounter, I try to be polite the way I was taught to be polite, which is thank you. Oh, you have a good day. All those little things. But I'm jaded as well in many ways. And I was at the Home Depot months ago, could be last year, and I had finished purchasing, and I went out into this huge parking lot in the afternoon, I think it was, and there was the parking lot was half full, half empty, so you have a few parking spaces all around you, and I'm just putting stuff into my truck. Mind you, my truck is a hot mess as far as it's the paint stripping. I have to crawl on the other side of the door, reach the passenger side, open the door, reach over, open it, then come around. You sit in it and you hear the frame go, and if you turn, I mean, sometimes the airbag light turns on. If I hit something, it'll turn back off. I mean, just a hot mess. And so I'm putting stuff in, and then I see this incredibly, just the most beautifully attractive, soft, even from the distance, and I can't see too well, but boy, my radar was on. And she was walking towards me, and it looked like a breath of fresh air in the middle of some devastated parking lot, And she's walking towards me. And she gets to me, and I'm thinking, as she's coming towards me, I'm saying, she's walking this way. Is she walking towards me? Oh, yeah, she's walking towards me. She is. And I'm just doing what I'm doing as I'm getting inside the car. I hadn't made it into the car when she comes up and she says, excuse me. And I said, no, I don't have any money. That was the first thing that came out of my mouth. I said, no, I don't have any money.
What do you say to that? I mean, did she shut up, turn around, and go somewhere else, or?
She was so angry. She was so angry. But you have to understand, my brain was calculating the whole situation as it's happening.
Uh-huh.
I'm not gonna say that. Look, I'm getting my car. I'm getting into my car. It's a hot mess, and this incredible hot babe is walking in the middle of an empty parking lot, aimed towards me. My mathematics is quick. Okay.
Well, see, that's I was going to say, because I thought I knew where you were going with this, but that just threw me for a loop. I was going to say a lot of it is big city mentality versus small town mentality, because I've lived in big cities and I've lived in small towns, and they are two completely separate, different places.
Yeah.
And
that'll teach her not to ask questions from strangers.
Oh man. And she wasn't holding Girl Scout cookies either. So, what can you say? I mean, good grief. But yeah, there is, I don't know, is it so much jaded as it is experienced, because you've been there all your life.
Yeah.
For the most part. I mean, a few years you were out in the West Coast here. And it's even worse on the West Coast. It really is. That kind of thing is the panhandling and what have you. It's even worse.
All right.
But it's more of a big city thing. So you have to deal with things in the big city where you've got 30 people vying for the same parking spot, and another 50 behind you trying to make a left turn or a right turn or whatever, and 30 ahead of you. We don't deal with that here. Pace of life is much slower. People take it a bit easier. I mean, there are, let's be nice, Adam Henrys everywhere, and the right people will get that. But generally speaking, you have to concern yourself with things that we don't, just simply because of the number of people and proximity. you're pretty much packed into a smaller area.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of psychology that goes along with that. You're more on the defense, where we can lower our defenses more or less and not really be as concerned about certain things. Not everything, but
I could see a
I don't know.
duality
Uh-huh.
in society, and I think it's always been around. And I don't want to say, I used to be very irreverent and anti-establishment, in because just rebellious. Let's say rebellious, not not anarcho, but rebellious. Like, hey, why does that work that way, or why does this have to be? Why? Just very. And I guess I still have a lot of that, but I've learned it's a funny thing, man. Even as crazy as one might believe, just judging by your friends' reactions to the things that you say or try to, but as time goes on, you do get settled in quite, because I guess you figure the human body and the brain, the psychology figures, what's the use, and it sounds like a slowing down of things, and I think it is, or maybe I don't know, a maturity. I don't know if
Well,
it's called that.
well, sometimes you just get tired of fighting something that can't be fought. When you're one person trying to go up against 300 million people, who do you think is going to win?
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's a lot more philosophical than I've ever thought about it.
Yeah.
But I've always been a live and let live, go along to get along kind of a guy. And give me clear cut rules, and I'm fine. I'll work within those rules if they're reasonable, and if they're not reasonable, I know I can go somewhere else.
The amount of people that don't follow the basic, when we grew up, and even though there's a difference between you and I of give or take 10, 12 years, something to that, or more, I don't know.
14, but yeah.
14 years. That's a significant amount.
Mm-hmm.
And as older you get, that it shortens, because the development, like let's say me, the younger guy, you have, like
Yeah.
loose change and nuts in your head, and you get more centered. But we were taught, and I feel quite confident because we've talked about it before, but even if we had not, for the most part, we were taught there's a level of respect when you encounter people that you don't know,
Sure.
because there's an increment of things that are allowed that maybe they're not so much written down and said, but they're taught internally.
Well,
Respect.
it's respect, and it's civility. It's being civil to the people around you, being, a decent human being. But one of the big differences, you and I, even though we're 14 years apart, you and I, we were raised by parents. We weren't raised by people who were trying to be our friends. I hear that and I rebel inside. Oh, my son is my best friend. And the only thing I can think of is, if your son is your best friend and that son is under 18, you really need to increase your circle of influence, because you got to find some friends.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be your son's friend. You're supposed to be their parent.
Yeah, my dad.
I was not my dad's friend until I grew up. Then we could be friends with one another. When I was 20, 21, 22, I started seeing things in a different light. And I started seeing why he said and did certain things that he said and did. And I made the connections because I was starting to do the same thing with my kids.
Yeah.
So then we found commonality in certain things, and we began to be friendly with one another. We weren't antagonistic towards one another, but there were clear cut roles in our family. Mom was mom. That was it. Dad was dad. That was it. I was the oldest child. My brother was the youngest child. That was it.
Yeah.
You knew where you stood, and we were taught to treat people a certain way, to act a certain way, especially in public, and to behave a certain way toward people, the folks around us. Please and thank you, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, things like that. And it carries with me to this day.
Eat with your mouth closed.
Mm-hmm.
Don't talk when the adults are talking. I don't know if you had those. I bet I would guess you did have
Yes.
those.
Don't interrupt.
Don't interrupt. Right. Um, but as far as the friendship thing, my old man was exactly like you're saying, and it was always like the hierarchy is
Mhm.
established. I am dad, and you shall, and these are the things,
Right.
and there were lessons there. I mean, he would actually take me aside every now, and this happened on both branches, on my father, the male, and my mom and aunts and grandparents and whatnot. And he would say, "You never let a woman pay." This is, we're talking back then. This is heresy nowadays,
Right. Uh-oh.
right?
Uh-oh.
But you never let a woman pay for the meal, and always take way more money in your pocket, and you pay for everything.
Right.
Always open the door for her.
Yeah. I was taught that as well. I was taught both of those things. And I don't think it's heresy, by the way. Of course, it's
But
controversial.
well, it's controversial, but I have in the past had um new forming relationships, and I wasn't quite sure if applicable because of because of the climate of the time, the fine line between independence, equal, all these little things. And it sounds ridiculous, like, for the most part, yeah, but there were occasions with certain ladies that I thought, because of just our interact, all right, so do we do this opening the door Dutch, or should it be ultra? It's just little things like that. And this uncertain, because of the way things are going, the roles, and opening the doors and all this, can actually, you could see some negative reactions to it, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You can see some. Just on the dating thing, I never concerned myself with that. Did she want me to open the door? I always just did it because that's the way I was raised. You do that. you know. Well, we've talked about that before. Going into a store or something, if I get there a little bit sooner and somebody's 3 steps away, I don't care, male, female, orangutan. I don't give a ding dong. I'm holding the door. It's the polite thing to do. That's the way I
Even if
was raised.
even if the thieves are coming with masks and guns, you open the
Yes,
door for them?
because I'll open the door, let them in, and then I'll leave. They have cameras. I may or may not have one on me. Besides, I can get a license number, and call the cops. So, but yeah, that's just the way I was raised, and I figure it this way: if I'm taking somebody out and they get cheesed off at me because I open the door, we're not a match, and the date's over.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
we're just not a good match.
Well, sometimes when you're young, you'll overlook certain things because
I'm with you.
you're
I'm with
focused.
you.
So, but
Yeah.
it's actually not the it's actually not the wiser thing to do is not always what people do, obviously, because if that were so, we'd be like uber wise
Yeah.
people, which but there is a learning that sometimes you just have to let well enough alone and accept that something's not a match, that something doesn't work,
Yeah.
and there's a comfort and surety in that too.
Well, don't get me wrong. It's not like the date's over. I'm taking you home. Forget it. Let's go. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about we continue with the evening, but I've got a little memory bank up here going, and I'm starting to kind of watch and pay attention. If you're going to get upset with me because I held the door for you, what else are you going to get upset about? I'm going to look at how picky you are when it comes to ordering. If you order something and ask them to hold half of it because you don't like this, this, and this, maybe you should just order something else. But if she's
Yeah.
going to be that picky in the restaurant, how picky is she going to be when it comes to picking out towels for a house or something like that? I ain't got time for that. I ain't got time for that.
Yeah.
So, it starts going down the checklist there. Now, how the heck did we get on this topic?
Well,
It's a good one, but I just wonder where we went. But yeah, I get what you're saying. But it's a certain level of civility that you treat everybody with.
yeah.
But but that doesn't mean that you're a doormat. That doesn't mean that you're ready to be walked on by other folks.
So so I think I was like just turned 21 or something to that effect, and I took, I invited a lady out to eat, and I decided on an Italian restaurant, right? Because I wanted to be fancy schmancy, or just a very nice thing. And so she agreed to it, and we went to sit down and eat and stuff. And we sit down, and so we order the wine. She comes, the lady comes with the thing of the wine, and and she gives me the because traditionally they give the guy the list of the wines, and you're supposed to judge which
Yeah.
is the best suited for the occasion this evening. And she gives me the thing, and I look, and I don't know the names of any of these wines. They're all in French,
Mhm.
you know. Which, by the way, I happen to have now a new discovered French lineage, but they're all in French. I'm looking at that stuff, and I look at at my date, and I look at the lady. I said, "Yeah, I guess we'll have a bottle of the Cabernet Sauvignon."
Yeah, I never try to pronounce foreign words I can understand. And I say that as a guy who spent 3.5 years in Germany. I will rehearse words before I say them. Just sitting there in the restaurant, we'll have the wite. Yeah, that's white, sir. Oh, okay.
I swear to you. And the funny thing is, what made it even better for me, like cringeworthy afterwards, was
Uh-huh.
that I didn't learn about that until a little time after, because I didn't go back to a freaking fancy
Yeah.
schmancy Italian, and then I had learned that it was something other,
Mhm.
Cabernet Sauvignon, right?
Uh-huh.
And I just looked back and cringed back at my but what are you gonna do?
No, you're out trying to impress a lady with your knowledge and pretend like you know what you're doing at the same time. I'm with you. I've not been in that particular circumstance, but only because when I was dating like that, I was underage. I've been married for most of my life. Thinking back on it now, I'm 58 years old. I got married the first time at age 17 and divorced 7 years later, then remarried 31 years ago to, I was lucky. I met the woman of my dreams, and everything has been going great. No, we're not the Brady Bunch. I mean, yeah, we have differences of opinion, and yeah, things, happen, but we never forgot that we actually like one another.
That's important.
And
Yeah,
yeah, and we genuinely like to be with each other. So, there's a mutual respect there.
that's a beautiful thing.
So, but it's, I tell you, I'm kind of glad simply because, and I've heard from several women and younger men that men are afraid of women these days. They really are. They're afraid they're going to get called on something. So you don't say anything. You don't go up and try to initiate a conversation. You don't dare hold a door open. And it's led to a lack of civility.
Oh,
I have two
yeah,
granddaughters, and they're saying that guys just don't want to talk to you. Well, they're afraid of you. They're afraid they're gonna be seen as predators or something like that, and they just don't know what the heck to say. So it's safest just to say nothing.
yeah. It screws up the whole, or at least what we've come to expect. Because, like, you've seen science fiction um, movies from the past, and you'll have like the the women of the Amazon, and cultures that are matriarchal and whatnot. So I think humans would adapt. Like, that's just a really far, throwing the ball real far. But I think that we're seeing a shift, whether it's made via force or select people using propaganda, whatever the case might be. There has been, and it causes rifts in the normal, natural,
Mhm.
back and forth between the two genders.
Right.
Um, and so, I see. I just did a controversial I just said two genders.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, and I'm like I said, my youngest granddaughter is 18, my oldest is 20, and they're both saying the same thing. I mean, you know, guys are just afraid to talk to you. They just won't talk to you. They won't do anything. And I was like, well, they don't want to be called a predator. They don't want to end up on some list somewhere because you decided they weren't the one that you wanted to talk to, and they had the nerve to come up and actually speak. You know, it is coming to that. And, you know, my grandsons are the same way. They're like, you know, no, heck no. You know, you've got to know somebody for a long time before you feel comfortable even thinking about trying to ask somebody out. And then you're taking a chance because all they have to do is say no, you know, how dare you, or something like that. And that's it. You're toast.
You know, I always joked with my friends. I think that, and this was a long time back, you know, that I mentioned this, because I see the irony of things. We all do, you know. And with my friends, I don't mean to segue, but I just want to say, I remember being kids and me and my friends going to the mall, dude. And like, you know, we're kids, all the hormones are exploding everywhere. And we walk in like a little bunch of kids, and we walk into the mall, and there's all these hot girls walking up and down. And we're like, oh my goodness, look at this one. Oh my goodness. And we're bumping, and it's just like, we're rolling down you know, just insane. And the hormones, well, there's a certain amount of what you call natural development where you approach, you know, people, women, men, but there's a natural thing that had occurred but now we've entered into a situation where all these things that you're mentioning are sort of cutting, you know, into the fabric of how we have normally, I guess, come together. I always used to tell my friends, it'd be good if we wore signs showing belief systems, political affiliations, music, favorite band, you know, are you a book reader? Do you like sports? And then we wear those, and then that way it could facilitate contact with people that are like-minded. But knowing humans, they'll always do something like, oh, if, you know, like a guy will make a shirt that says "Love flowers, quiet walks in the meadow," and this and that. You know what I'm saying? It's just
right.
So you can't win with humans because we're so dynamic.
Right. Well, not only are we dynamic, we know how to figure out the system, exactly like you're talking about. I mean, what's the cliche? I like puppies and long walks on the beach. You know, every guy will say that kind of thing, whether he lives within 1,000 miles of a beach or has ever seen a puppy in his life. He's willing to say that if he thinks it gives him a chance. You know.
Well, another weird thing of how extreme that case. I had a mutual friend in common where a guy had this beautiful dog. I don't know what kind of dog it was, but he would take it for walks in the park. And he's a mutual friend in common. And there's another mutual friend in common. And whatever, just a bunch of friends. But that guy with the dog one day was walking in the park, and a lady with a dog was walking in the park. And their dogs started sniffing each other, you know, one dog to the other.
As dogs do.
As dogs naturally do. And the adults then started talking. And lo and behold, they ended up getting married, having kids, and having a beautiful... Well, this one other person that's a friend in common, or, you know, mutual acquaintance, as it were, he got the notion that that's what I'm going to do. He goes to the pound and picks out a dog. And this really made me not like... I don't like what happened, but it really pissed me off, to be honest with you. So he goes and picks out a dog, frees it from captivity, as it were, because there's a whole process.
Right.
And you're taking a dog home. This is a living creature, you know.
Sure.
But this guy then proceeds to walk the dog a couple of times in the park as well. He finds that that he doesn't get the same reaction. He returns the dog to the pound.
Well,
he's a jerk.
Like I said, there are Adam Henrys everywhere. There are
Yeah.
Adam Henrys and everywhere. Women don't necessarily, my experience, I can say this. Women don't necessarily just like dogs. Some do, some don't. Just like guys. Some like them, some don't. But occasionally you will meet someone who is attracted to your dog and attracted to you because of your relationship with the dog. People can tell when you're friends and when you're buddies with your dog.
Yeah.
There's an affinity. I mean, you and Vigo, you guys have a system. You guys have a relationship, and people can tell that you have a relationship with your dog. That does more to attract the opposite sex than just some guy with a dog, because there are guys with dogs everywhere.
I'll tell you something too. There's people with there's a whole lot of people. It's in truth, as you get old, people are very, the brain, the mind, the thought process is very, and one's lack of knowing where boundaries are can create for a bunch of difficult situations and dangerous. There's people that will perceive, let's say you and your dog in a whole. The natural process is that if you're walking a dog, there's a relationship and this and that. There's people out here in Sweden, I could tell you that they perceive a whole different thing. They perceive a danger coming down the road. Like there's people that are afraid of dogs and whatnot.
Yeah. Okay. Sure, there are people that are afraid of dogs. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it's a crazy thing to go in that direction, but the reason I'm saying that is that people, you never know what's going on, inside the brain.
Oh, yeah.
And therefore, I'm wary of that. Like I look at people and I look at people, and as I talk with them and stuff, and I not only do I judge what I'm hearing, what I'm getting from them vocally in conversation, but I'm watching for their reactions, and I do it kind of automatic, and I get a sense about people, and I could be wrong about it, but it's all I have to go on. If a person gets bored in a conversation, if they're not really listening in a conversation, if they have an intent in a conversation, like there's all these signals that occur. We all have that because we're human beings, and there's communication going on. And some people pay attention to it and others don't. But you come to quickly realize how, and I use the word dangerous kind of loosely because there's different scenarios, but you could get in a whole lot of trouble just walking out your door and interacting with people. Sorry to say.
Sure. But again, like I say, that's more or less one of those big city things, because you just simply have more people packed into a smaller area. Out here, like, I live in an area that's so small. The town I live in has 5,000 people in it. And it's a suburb of a town of about 80,000 people, something like that, something in that neighborhood. So we're not huge. So we don't have a lot of the things that you're talking about. We don't have, 70 people all trying to occupy the same space at the same time. So I can go out in the front yard, and 99 times out of 100, I'm completely left alone out in the front yard.
That's wonderful.
I got a neighbor that sits out on her front porch, and she'll wave and I'll wave, and that'll be about it. The other neighbor, I see him when they come home from work or when they leave in the morning to go to work. There's very little interaction there. But that's, fine, great, terrific. I'm doing my thing. If I want to have a conversation with you, I'll start one up. If I don't, I'm not being rude. I waved, I acknowledged your presence, said good morning or something like that, but now I got stuff I got to do. And it's all good. My neighbors they're not out to try to scam me out of nothing. They're not out to get something from me. I mean, they got their own lives and they go on with them. And everybody's happy.
The movie Rear View Window or something like that?
Rear Window?
No. Yeah. Is it Rear Window?
Is that the one with Jimmy Stewart?
Yeah.
Alfred Hitchcock movie? Yeah.
You know how he was injured? I think his leg was busted and he couldn't do anything but sit in his apartment, look out the window, and like use his binoculars to look at people. That's kind of, I hate to say it, but that's kind of how it is living in a neighborhood in Miami, except that the binoculars, everybody's got them and they're all looking out the window. You can't do anything. I've got a little bit of a yard going on, actually, and I've got a yard that wraps around like every house would around the house. And so I could go into different little nooks and whatnot. At this point in time, I have a lady that is in the back. That's always she. In fact, she one time she brought a lawn chair, and pointed it facing my backyard and just stared like it's a movie.
Are we out building something or something?
Yeah, and it's like, and then the side neighbor, the same thing, and then in the front neighbors, the same thing. They sit in there and they look forward. There's no escaping it. And my way of doing things is like, if I am doing something and I try to avoid peeping into other people's. I glance at it, you calculate the area, okay, because it's a natural. You can't just put blinders
on. Outside, you look around. Oh, nice day. Hey, great. Oh man, that flower's in bloom. Great. That kind of stuff. Yeah.
But nowhere, there's no escaping it. But I don't stay focused staring at my neighbors. I have neighbors that'll actually sit with lawn chairs and just stare, smoking cigarettes, and they're just staring. What the hell is that, dude? What is this? And so it's like, I don't like it. I don't think
I'm sitting here laughing, not because I know what that's like to have somebody sit there and watch me, through a fence, working on something, except one kid next door, he'd watch what I was doing out there. He didn't stand there hanging on the fence, but he would, he'd look over and see what I was doing every once in a while. And, I was outside. I was doing a outro to a video, and I was in my shed.
Yeah.
And the tripod is set up in the doorway. When I shoot an outro from my shed, the camera is actually outside, and I'm shooting through the doorway. And I got my wireless mic on, or my lapel mic on, rather, into my digital recorder. And I'm talking to the camera and this, that, and the other. And I come walking out, and him and his girlfriend are standing there by the fence, about 2 foot away from the fence.
Oh, geez.
And he's just looking at me. But she finally says, I got to ask, what are you doing? and I'm a quick replay of the outro I did through my head. And I moved the camera over so they could see it. And I said, I'm shooting a video for YouTube. Oh, yeah. we thought we didn't know if we had a crazy neighbor or what was going on. But I said, yeah. Oh, you got a YouTube channel? Yeah, and this, that, and the other. And the minute I started talking about CNC equipment, their eyes glazed over, and I said, well, there's 2 subs lost,
Yeah.
So that's fine. But it was just one of those things. I come walking out of that, what are you doing?
So it's hilarious. So basically, they just wanted to be informed on their neighbor's activity. So and it's just so funny.
You could see the concern. I mean, he was looking at the concern in his eyes like, oh, man, this guy isn't going to snap, is he?
That's funny.
But just like, what are you doing? I'm shooting a video for YouTube. Then it was, oh, cool, until I told him the subject. And it was like, yeah, I'm not interested in that. But
yeah.
Hey, have a nice day, But it was more of a curiosity. They were coming through, and there's this loud voice coming from out of this shed with an open door. And it's like, what the hell's going on? There ain't nobody else over there. But
I love it, though, because once the subject was established, they were like, nah, we don't like that. We're not going to, So like they went through this whole ritual just to investigate you, but when it came time for you they're like, nah, that's not good for us. Okay.
Well, that's cool, but I'm not interested. No, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great, but it's just like the old what was it? Dennis Miller one time said, "You can't save everybody. All you can do is hope you don't live next door to them when they go off." And I think it was more of a self-preservation thing on their part. But but the scrutiny that you're talking about, where you've got neighbors setting up lawn chairs to watch you. No, I've not had that going. But that led me to a realization that I came to about 5-6 days ago, I guess. You remember the old sitcoms from the 60s and 70s? I'm sure you've seen them in syndication, the repeats. They all have that one nosy neighbor. Like on Bewitched, you had Mrs. Kravitz peeking through the blinds or looking through the curtain or what have you.
Yeah.
They all have that one nosy neighbor.
Three's Company.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
suddenly struck me as I'm standing out on my deck looking over my gate at the lot across the cul-de-sac where they're building a new house. They were, at this time, they were finishing, they had poured the concrete foundation slab,
Right.
and the finishers are out there doing it. And I'm standing there watching them, got a cup of coffee going and everything, going, man, that's going to be cool. That's really going to be a nice place.
Yeah.
It suddenly struck me, I am that neighbor. I have become that neighbor. There ain't a damn thing that's going on around me that I don't know about. Oh, that guy, he does this for a living.
Yeah.
You know, oh, they're building a house over there. That's pretty cool. Oh, the lady over the back fence, they got 2 dogs. One of them's kind of mean. The other one's a sweetheart, you know.
That's interesting. It's
like,
true.
I have become that damn neighbor. And it bugs me, man.
You know, it's true. So at the same flipping that around what I just said, I'm quite aware of my surroundings. It's just that I try to, I guess the difference is because I've lived here all my life, and a lot of these people have been here for a very, very long time, and you can't help but people come up to you and say, "Oh, can you help me because my air conditioner," you know, and then you go and then you interact with people and this and that. You know, by the way, I've done a lot of handyman work for people just around here and stuff, but I try to avoid. That said, I don't try to, you know, keep staring or this. And in fact, I don't even care, right?
Yeah.
I try to, so there's a level, but these people will actually sit there and like smoke.
Maybe they're genuinely interested. Maybe you're more interesting than what they got on TV. I mean, you know, maybe they're really, oh, what's he making now? Let's go check it out. You know, that kind of thing. Maybe they're genuinely interested. But the funny thing about this entire discussion that I'm finding, I find it mildly ironic that you notice and are maybe a little bit, maybe not, bugged by somebody getting out a lawn chair and bringing it over and watching you make something out in the backyard.
Yeah.
While you're filming it to put on YouTube, where you hope millions of people will see it.
Yeah.
I just think that's kind of funny.
You're totally right, but I don't. You know, it's funny though. I don't know that anybody in my, and I could be wrong, in my immediate view in this area get the whole concept of YouTube. That's how not in line with the culture modern day.
Yeah.
And it's a worldwide phenomenon, but these people are people from another era.
Yeah.
And apart from another era, they're also from another place.
Right.
And so it's TV and radio and whatever that. So, and it's not to, when you grow, there's abstract ideas and thoughts. There's different ways. Like it's not all, you know, laborious stuff. There's also recreational adventures in the head and stuff. These people I've talked to them.
Yeah.
And if you go anywhere slightly abstract, you've lost them. And you're a kook.
Yeah.
There's only 2 neighbors that I can talk to in that fashion, which is the way we typically talk. In fact, all of our friends and our listeners, we kind of get it. It's just levels of, these people are a little bit more not going outside the box.
Right. And let me guess, most of them are older than you, much older than you, right?
A lot of them are.
Yeah. And that's the thing. There's a cultural divide there. Self-imposed, and they're happy with it. That's great. That's their lives. But there's a cultural divide there. And believe it or not, we have just segued ourselves full circle and came back to that point. Is someone who is extremely popular on YouTube actually a celebrity? Even if they've never been on television, never been in a movie, never been on the radio, never been in a big band, but they still have 11 million followers and 2.5 billion views.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the answer has got to be yes. They certainly are celebrities. I don't know how many of them get recognized walking down the street. I don't know if they're ever asked for autographs or anything like that. I don't know, is that considered obsolete or old and passé? But I think that they would. Yeah, I don't see how you could classify them as anything other than celebrities.
I think that you're right. But with the caveat that, how could I put this? We've talked about this a lot, but I think that these things sort of hold true. Back in the day, we didn't have the branching out of different disciplines that you can explore through TV. You couldn't do that like we could do now with the internet. So now what we have is little sort of like groups of people that have interest in CNC,
Mm-hmm.
um, whittling,
Mm-hmm.
um, aerospace technology enthusiasts, DNA analysis people, comic book. There's so many branch offs. Whereas before you'd have to join a club
Right.
or read books or this and that. You didn't have like these outstanding. So TV stars had that sort of power of everybody had to gather at night once the sun went down, and for the most part, everybody was looking at the same faces, a la um, Johnny Carson and people like that. And now, yes, people are like a million followers, but in the great scheme of things, if I see them on the street, I probably wouldn't recognize them.
Yeah. There's a possibility there. There's a very distinct possibility there. But also, we were raised during that time where there was a certain level of separation. I mean, unless you went to an event and you were fortunate enough to be up close, like you were talking about going to see Bob Dylan, and you ended up right there in front of him. You were that close. During a break between songs or something like that, you could have very easily said something to him, and he may or may not have responded as he chose.
Yeah.
But other than something like that, or if you just happen to be in the right place at the right time and there would be a chance meeting, bump him into somebody at a restaurant or something like that, there was they were out of reach. You couldn't just write a letter to Cary Grant and get an answer. You couldn't just write a letter to Johnny Carson or Carol Burnett and get an answer. But today, with desirable interaction, if you tweet at a celebrity, there's a good chance they are actually going to see it, and you may get a reply. They're constantly asking for comments in the comment section. If you interact with them, if you look for them and find them on Facebook, you can probably find their page. It may be a fan page run by their secretary.
Yeah.
Or, like, for example, Mike Rowe. Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs and Somebody's Got to Do It and a few other shows. One of the most recognizable voices in media. If you follow his Facebook page and you post a comment, he is actually reading that comment. He reads them and he responds to a select few. He has a life. He obviously can't sit there at the computer and answer everybody, but you are genuinely interacting with him. And that's something that is new. And I can recall, I remember back far enough, that's new enough to be novel. To where celebrities are less, the pedestal is not as high as it used to be.
It's not.
They are more reachable. They are more contactable these days.
Well, I mean, yeah.
And it's 100% by choice,
Well, it's the new method now, the new way of interacting, of
Right.
making it, because I think TV's struggling. I'm sure there's a ton of people. I mean, just judging by my neighborhood, I'm sure that these people aren't sitting, unless it's like the younger crowd, like you said, generation wise. I don't think any of these people are on the internet right now. And if they do have internet, it's for their kids or,
Right.
And by the way, everybody's just about adult here, but there's no kids, let's say. But I think that they're more towards the TV in fact, I have a neighbor, and he's an older gentleman, and he could really benefit from internet because he loves to explore and this and that, but he can't do it He can't operate the keyboard, the mouse. It's not. And I explained it to him, and I even set it up for him. He did get internet, and I set his little computer up, and he's just an older guy, and he had the computer and stuff, and he'd call me, oh, how do you do? And he did it for a few weeks and stuff, and he just couldn't. He has access to things that he would probably be so he couldn't break that sort of that barrier of understanding the keyboard with the mouse and the screen, and you type into Google being, an avenue into this library, worldwide library of content that branches, just all those concepts that we just now just completely have it inside ourselves, like it's just in a moment's notice. He didn't have that. He can't do it. He can't connect the dots.
Well, it's not all age related because I have a couple of relatives. I'm not going to name names to save their embarrassment. They think that they're pretty savvy with technology, and they think they know what's going on online, but they really don't. Yeah. I mean, they were over. I was showing them a couple of videos that I just thought were funny, and they thought they were absolutely hilarious, and they had no idea that any of this stuff existed on YouTube. They thought YouTube were cat videos. Oh, that's where people post their trips to the zoo and stuff like that. Well, back in 2004, 5, 6, that's what it was, but it's so much different now. And one of them is hooked on it. The other just really doesn't care. It is kind of generational, but then again, it's not generational. It's all based on interest. There are still millions of people in this country alone that think of entertainment is TV, the radio, or an album. And if it's not one of those three, they go out and make their own entertainment. Yeah. Well, we have so many choices now, it's almost overloading. If there's nothing on TV, we can go online and find something else to do, whether it be watching a video or making a video. I suggested that to my daughter and granddaughter, make a few videos, and they were just blown away. Why would we want to do that? Well, just for fun, give it a try. I don't want people to see us. Well, okay, then don't. I mean, I had an idea. I think you guys could do it, and I think you'd be good at it. Well, it just doesn't sound interesting. Okay, fine. Don't worry about it.
There's also a spirit of adventure. Because back in the day, people would read books, and they still do. I know.
Oh yeah, I do. I'm quite an avid reader.
But in the course of, so I'll just say this: if you have a book on a given subject, let's say early building construction in medieval times. And you have that book and you read through that book, well, that book is going to, take you through a journey and explain X, Y, and Z. And that's obviously completely valid and fair. And then on the internet side, how much information can we summon? It's not in, let's say, story form and this and that 100% of the time, but how intricate. If you really wanted to know medieval building construction and you wanted to know everything about it, it's easier, or sorry, let me scratch easier. It's readily available.
Yeah.
And cross referencing of, people that have particular studies of the joints, and it goes on and on. So what I'm trying to get at is that book is a certain medium that obviously it's been around for, but we have this thing here that there's no end to it, man. Or there might be an end to it, but not in our lifetime. I mean, there's too much information. And it's
But you also have to wonder about that because, like, we'll just take the example that you're talking about, medieval building construction techniques. You can go online right now, and in fact, I could send you some links to people who are restoring medieval buildings. And we're talking about not necessarily taking them down brick by brick, but they're repointing all those bricks, and then they're tearing out the entire structure inside and rebuilding it the way it was built, in the 1500s or what have you. So yeah, you can find that information, but then you start to wonder, with all of the things, all of the activities, and all of the occupations and preoccupations that are out there in the world, when does it become enough? When does it become the same thing over and over again? How many, and you see it right now, Discovery Channel's doing Shark Week. They've been doing Shark Week for so many years, they're repeating things because they've jumped the shark with Shark Week, literally. It's not as popular as it used to be because people they don't have to wait for that special week. They can go get information on sharks all year long. They don't have to wait for Discovery anymore. So, but at what point do we get to where now it's the same thing over and over again?
It's not, or it depends on what you're specifically saying. But like with the whole DNA from last week that we talked about on the show, hell, I've gone and just researched it. I mean, I'm learning new things. It's so exciting as an example because it's something that I'd never even thought of. I mean, I thought of caveman and I thought of this and that, but like in passing and this and that, and all this thing is giving me new little in my brain connections, and I'm like, wow. So what does this mean? And it's just, so I think, I don't know, as far as the human being, as long as your curiosity,
right,
is there, I think that the internet, it's a given.
That's absolutely true, but there's going to become a time and that you start noticing you're finding the same things over and over again, and you're seeing the same things over and over again, just in a different voice with a different person on the screen. It's the same information. That's what I'm getting at.
Oh,
there is an endless pool of topics out there. Believe me. In fact, one of the jokes it's just a joke, but it is real life. If 3 people are interested in anything, one of them has made a message forum about it, another person has made a Facebook group about it, and another person has a YouTube channel dedicated to it. It's just a simple fact. And I don't care what subject it is. If you're looking for ways to make your fingernails grow faster, somebody has a Facebook group, somebody has a message forum, and somebody has a YouTube channel.
Or a Reddit.
Or okay, we'll even add that in. Yeah, you're right. There's a subreddit for it.
Yeah. It's a hilarious thing.
It is. But my point in saying that, it is a joke, but it's only half a joke because it's also true. You can look up anything. The number one, we all know, the number one search engine is Google. The number 2 search engine is YouTube. Because it's one thing to find a web page and read about it. It's another thing entirely to watch a video and see it being done.
Yeah.
Whether it's somebody is making something, or somebody is taking something apart, or somebody is just talking about something, standing next to a World War II German U-boat that was found off the coast of wherever. Somebody has done it because they're not the only person interested in it. And you may stumble across it and get fascinated by it. It may show up in your suggestions and you just disregard it. I'm not interested in that. But the pool of topics out there to be discussed is endless. It just keeps growing every day.
I mean, heck, it just goes in every direction. I mean, it's just an incredible thing. All this information is on the internet in servers across the world, I would assume. And I know that there's places like the Internet Archive that takes snapshots of pages, but not videos and whatnot. But it's all in a digital, in actual servers and hard drives across the world. And I know there's a place in Europe that's like, no, is it in Europe? There's a big library. And they have massive amounts of books, but they also have a super hub where they collect all the information from the internet. I don't know if you've heard
No,
of
I've
that.
not heard of that. I'll have to check into it. I've not heard of that.
Yeah, so they have this huge, and they collect information and whatnot. I guess they're preserving it for the future. I don't know what the story is, but that's a lot of data.
Yeah. If it's conservation, we're just archiving it here for future generations. That's one thing. I mean, because when you think about it, it is a library, and websites go down all the time. I mean, there are websites that I used to visit back in my pop-up camper and travel trailer days when I was working on them and playing around with customizing and restoring, and they no longer exist. So I'm sure I can find snapshots of it on archive.org, but if there's somebody who has it archived out there, that would be cool to go back and look.
Yeah.
Because that's my problem with digital media, is the fact that it's not permanent. We like to think of it as permanent. Oh, sure, I can go back to YouTube and I can go find that video. Well, remember that day YouTube went down?
Yeah.
Nobody knew what the heck was going to happen. What's going on? Did I lose all my videos? Did I lose all this? Well, one day YouTube will go down. And it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. One day YouTube will go down and not come back. It may be replaced by something else by that time. It may be obsolete. But if the internet has taught me anything, it's that nothing is temporary and nothing is permanent. Because the information may continue to circulate out there, but the original sources may go away, and then suddenly nobody knows where it came from.
Yeah, the best we could do is seek out as populations are and individuals seeking out their particular interests are creating more information. The best that society could do, and people that are focused on that aspect of preserving, is to try to find the best way to preserve and usher along all the knowledge for future generations, because the whole idea is to be able, some guy in the future, to be able to access, because none of it is important to the masses until a certain individual is looking for a particular topic or a particular point in time, and they need to source that information, and they reach back and they find, let's say, our podcast, for whatever reason, and then they can grab back into it. So it's not useful unless those people from the future, until they reach out to it. What are you cracking up?
I just had a strange thought. You're talking about them reaching back to find our podcast.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be weird to discover that 1,000 years from now, we are being used as an example? See, this is what two people could do, sitting in their own homes across the continent from one another back then. And this is what they did with their time.
Yeah.
Can you believe this stuff? Anybody could get on the internet and make a show about it and put it out there for the world to see. Which is still a new enough concept for me that I'm still blown away by the idea.
I'm blown away by it too. I'm with you on that. Or inversely, in the future, some sort of Planet of the Apes phenomenon occurs, and the hard drive where our podcast is stored, they're using it to mallet some sort of acorn to open it up and eat its contents, So,
or the invaders are using this knowledge to, that's what it is. They all love this thing called the Beatles, and they're running around in trucks playing Strawberry Fields Forever, hoping to lure us out of the caves,
Well, see, that's another, exactly. We don't know the effects. And as funny as it may sound, we don't know the effect of the things that we do. Looking into the future, because that very might, they pick out one thing and then they repeat it as some sort of religious, institution, let's say.
Right. So all we have to do is keep our Slim Whitman albums handy, and we're safe.
I don't know who that is. Slim Whit?
That was a reference to the movie Mars Attacks.
Oh, I haven't watched that one.
Okay. It was actually kind of funny. We had alien invaders come along, and everybody thought they were all benevolent and everything. Turns out they wanted to take over the world. And they all had these glass domes over their heads, and their brains are exposed and everything. And they found out that by playing Slim Whitman, his voice hit the right pitch when he went falsetto, that it would
Yeah.
shatter that thing and kill him.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So they drove around playing Slim Whitman album.
Hey man, I just to conclude this wonderful episode, we had other things in mind, but we just went with it, and we went in all sorts of directions. I gotta watch that movie. Is it from the 60s?
No, let me look it up here real quick. I believe it was 1990s. Let's see. It was 1996.
Oh,
It was
wow.
released. And it was, I mean, it had its moments. It wasn't, out of 10, I'd give it about a 4. It had its moments, but
So it's a cheesy, but it has a concept to it.
It was a cheesy movie. Jack Nicholson was the president, and it was absurdity. It was kind of fun, but it could have been better. It was one of those that just missed it by that much. Could have been better. And there were a lot of missed opportunities. And as you watch the movies, it's like, oh man, they should have done this. But they didn't. So, you're kind of left there. But it had its moments. I don't know that I would say you got to watch it.
Yeah, I get it.
It's I guess it's worth a sideways glance anyway.
Yeah,
it's
just because of the reference.
Rush out and buy, but yeah.
All right. Well, Mark, I had a great time. I guess I'll catch you next time, and I'll catch you guys out there next time. We should do the whole bit where if you guys want some more content, you can find us at
Trampled Underfoot Podcast.com. That's our website. You can come over there, click that link up at the top that says Wayback Machine. The current episode is always on the front page. I know, I put it there. Hit that Wayback Machine and you can go back and check out all of our past episodes. This is episode 51. So if you're new to the podcast, you have a little bit of catching up to do. That's okay. We can wait.
And also, you can go over to Spreaker, type in Trampled Underfoot Podcast, and you can check out our episodes as well there. Hit a like, join Spreaker. You can have your own show as well, and you can follow us there, or you can follow us on our Facebook page. And in our Facebook page, we post, topical things that we've discussed throughout the week prior. And give us a follow. We'll catch you next time.
Have a good night, y'all.